Inside the Apostolic Palace of the Vatican on the night of October 30th, 1503, something happened that shook the Christian world to its core. Under vaulted ceilings built to honor the divine, 50 naked courtesans crawled across the freezing marble floor. Cardinals and bishops stood frozen, their silence heavier than the air itself. And at the center of it all, watching, smiling, even laughing, sat Pope Alexander Vist. He presided over the scene like it was his own twisted celebration. But what the witnesses saw that night was only the opening scene. The true nightmare had not yet begun. What followed would be so depraved, so violently opposed to the very idea of sanctity that even the most hardened chroniclers, centuries later, struggled to write it down without hesitation. This is the story of Lucrezia Borgia, a woman trapped in a dynasty where power mattered more than blood, faith, or human dignity. A woman whose wedding night became one of the darkest stains in Vatican history. If hidden horrors of the past fascinate you, subscribe to Grim History, hit the like button, and once you reach the moment that unsettles you most, tell me where you're watching from. Let's begin. In the autumn of 1503, the bells of St. Peter's rang across Rome, carrying news that quickly consumed Italy. The Pope had announced that his daughter, twice widowed under circumstances dripping with suspicion, would marry once more. But this time there would be no distant palace, no quiet noble hall. The ceremony would take place inside the Vatican itself in the papal apartments, beneath sacred fresco and symbols meant to represent heaven's judgment. The groom chosen for Lucrezia was Alfonso d'Este, the young heir to the powerful Duke of Ferrara. To the rest of Italy, this alliance looked like a political triumph. To Alfonso, it felt more like a quiet execution. Lucrezia's past was infamous. Her first husband, Giovanni Schwarzer, had run from Rome claiming assassins had been sent for him. Her second, Alfonso of Aragon, had been strangled on the steps of the Vatican, rumor pointing directly toward her brother, Cesabura. And now, another Alfonso was being bound to the Borgia family. He knew the danger. Every noble in Italy did. Desperate to escape what he knew was coming, Alfonso tried everything: diplomatic excuses, delays, pleased through emissaries. But Alexander VI was not a man who tolerated refusal. Inside the Vatican, surrounded by scarlet-robed cardinals, his command was absolute. Messengers rode day and night toward Ferrara with the simple message: accept this marriage or be destroyed. If the Este family resisted, Ferrara would face Caesar's merciless armies. Their dynasty could be shattered, and excommunication would strip them of both legitimacy and allies. Italy understood the truth well. No one survived a conflict with the Boers. Realizing resistance meant annihilation, Duke d'Este ordered his son to travel to Rome and surrender to the unavoidable alliance. Meanwhile, in her Vatican apartments, Lucia Borgia gazed out over the eternal city, her expression heavy with a sorrow far older than her 21 years. Europe had painted her as a seductress, a poisoner, a woman who manipulated men like chess pieces. But those closest to her knew the truth. She was not a mastermind of deceit, but a pawn trapped between a father and brother whose ambitions knew no limits. Her first marriage was dissolved the moment it ceased to benefit them. Her second husband, whom she had genuinely loved, was murdered before her eyes, a fate she could neither prevent nor avenge. Her attendants whispered that she woke in the dead of night, clasping her chest, trembling from nightmares she refused to discuss. She knew this third marriage would not bring love, but even she could not imagine what her wedding night would become. Something dark, calculated, and cruel was gathering behind Vatican walls. Preparations for the ceremony moved quickly, yet the atmosphere inside the Apostolic Palace felt suffocating. Servants averted their eyes, cardinals muttered in hushed tones, strange figures passed through forbidden hallways at odd hours. Rumors swelled of secret instructions, of guests brought in through hidden passages. And one man felt the weight of it all more than anyone: Johann Broussard, the Vatican's master of ceremonies. He had seen countless scandals under Alexander VI's, extravagant feasts, political bribes, sacred offices sold like trinkets. But something about this night sent a cold unease through him. He sensed that this event would eclipse every scandal he had ever recorded. He sensed that he was about to witness something history would struggle to speak of. A trap had been set, gilded, polished, and inescapable, and both bride and groom were already marching toward its center. In December, Alonso d'Este entered Rome with a small escort. His journey from Ferrara had dragged him through frozen mountains, battered roads, and a growing dread that settled heavily on his chest. But nothing prepared him for the sight of the Vatican, a stone colossus rising above the city, half bathed in candlelight, half lost in scaffolding. It looked less like the heart of Christianity, and more like a fortress built to swallow those who dared oppose it. Inside, the welcome was overwhelming. Alexander VI sat upon its throne, robed in shimmering white and gold that reflected the candle light like molten metal. Beside him stood Caesar, silent, motionless, and terrifying in his restraint. Though only 26, he was already feared across Italy. Entire families vanished at his command. Cities surrendered at his approach. When his eyes locked onto Alfonso, the meaning was unmistakable. You are no guest here. Over the following weeks, Alfonso endured humiliation disguised as celebration. At banquets, he was seated beside courtesans, while high-ranking clergy watched with thinly concealed amusement. On hunts, Caesar displayed a ruthless skill that felt more like a warning than sport. During receptions, Alexander VI made pointed remarks about the tragic ends of Lucrezia's previous husbands. Every gesture carried the same quiet threat. You belong to us now. And the worst part, the true horror of this wedding, the moment that history would whisper about for centuries, had not yet begun. There were hunts where Caesar displayed his dominance with cold, effortless precision, reminding Alonso with every arrow and every fallen beast that he commanded, not only armies, but fear itself. There were receptions where Alexander mocked the fates of Lucrezia's previous husbands in front of the entire court, hinting almost cheerfully how short the life of a Burra son-in-law tended to be. Alonso tried to preserve what remained of his dignity, but by then he was a prisoner wrapped in ceremony. His own nights were kept isolated in the Vatican under flimsy excuses. He slept in rooms watched day and night by papal guards. Every passing hour revealed the truth more clearly. He had walked into a trap and there was no path back out. The marriage was nothing but a facade. The real purpose was far more vicious. The Borgias intended to break the Este family's pride, humiliate them before Italy, and show every noble house from Florence to Naples that their will could crush any lineage, no matter how old or powerful. And while Alfonso endured this quiet psychological siege, preparations of a very different nature were unfolding deep within the Vatican. Caesar took personal command of the wedding night's feast, and his vision pushed far beyond what even Rome's most decadent circles would have dared to whisper aloud. Behind closed doors, he met with his father to finalize the details that would have horrified any soul who still held the church in reverence. 50 of the most striking courtesans in Rome were hand-selected and taken into secret chambers beneath the palace. These were not ordinary prostitutes, but educated, refined women who frequented the salons of nobles. Many trembled when they learned what the Pope expected of them, yet none dared to defy the head of Christendom. They were ordered to dress in lavish velvet and silk garments they would later be compelled to remove. They were escorted through hidden passageways led by lantern light so that on the night of the wedding they could be funneled into the papal apartments without warning. Servants who witnessed these preparations crossed themselves repeatedly, whispering prayers that clung to their lips like frost. They knew something unholy had begun to rise within the walls of the Vatican. Even Lucrezia sensed it. Though she was deliberately excluded from most preparations, she felt the dark tension thickening in the air. Her maids reported unfamiliar faces slipping through corridors, courtesans appearing in rooms where they did not belong, and her brother Caesar moving about with a smile that made their blood run cold. The night before the wedding, unable to endure the suffocating atmosphere, Lucrezia fled to the Sistine Chapel. Beneath Michelangelo's vast, thunderous sky, beneath the painted hand of God reaching toward Adam, she collapsed to her knees. She prayed not for love or happiness, but for rescue, an intervention, a sign, anything at all. But the chapel remained silent. The divine felt impossibly distant. The candles flickered in the winter air, sneaking through ancient cracks as though straining to stay alive. Outside, the Vatican prepared for a celebration that would blur the line between sacred ritual and unspeakable corruption. In his chamber, Jan Burchard, the master of ceremonies, reviewed the final protocol. His hand trembled as he dipped his quill. He understood too well that what he was about to record would either be buried forever or stand as the most damning document in the history of the Church. The night of October 30th, 1503 was approaching, and with it a spectacle that would drag even the walls of the Vatican closer to hell. October 30 dawned with the grandeur of a papal wedding. The bells of St. Peter's echoed over the 7 hills of Rome. Crowds thronged the streets surrounding the Vatican, eager to glimpse the infamous bride. Inside the apostolic palace, Lucrezia was prepared by a dozen attendants. She wore a gown of shimmering silk embroidered with gold glowing like liquid flame beneath the candles. Her hair, long, bright, and carefully braided with pearls, fell down her shoulders in intricate plaits. Her face was pale, powdered to mask the exhaustion and fear beneath her eyes. When she looked into the mirror, she did not see a bride. She saw a sacrifice. The ceremony was held in the papal chapel, a chamber drowning in gilded walls and holy paintings. Alexander VI officiated personally, his booming voice filling the sacred space as he bound Alfonso and Lucrezia together before God. Rows of scarlet-clad cardinals stood rigidly along the chapel, their expressions carefully carved into masks of devotion. But behind their practiced piety flickered something else, dread. Every one of them knew the Borgia reputation. Every one of them sensed that,